started recording on the computer. Great. Awesome. So as a reminder of our AP government norms, remember attendance and cold call responses are impacting a quiz grade every week because we are all in. As a reminder, if you did not complete the homework before class today, you will be getting a 0 in the cold call responses because you would not be able to respond to the cold call if I asked you about today's homework. So if you see that it says that you did not submit the homework on Google Classroom and that is a mistake, please let me know and get that submitted. As a reminder of our Zoom expectations, videos on, microphones off, and we are only chatting when prompted. For Google Classroom, this is where you can find all your assignments and your Nearpod located. I will be posting your homework for over the weekend, either tonight or early tomorrow morning. I just need to confirm what that homework is. And make sure you have a constructive learning space set up. You're using a Chromebook and you're somewhere comfortable. Today, there is going to be a lot of time in breakout rooms and also as a whole group discussing this idea of, is federalism fundamentally broken? So we are going to begin our do now, which is on page 1 of today's classwork. I'll give you 30 seconds to pull up the classwork document. Again, 20 more seconds to get that up there. Great. You should have that open. So I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes to read this short quote from Scott Greer, who is a political scientist. You're going to have 3 minutes to read this quote and to brainstorm your answer to the question, do you agree with Greer's claim that the system of federalism isn't working properly? You're going to take 3 minutes to read this quote and to brainstorm in your classwork, and then we are going to contribute together on the Nearpod. 3 minutes on the clock. Go ahead and get started. Ninety more seconds. Great. I am now going to open the Nearpod where you are going to have a collaboration board. Do you agree with Greer's claim that federalism isn't working? Please take 90 seconds to respond. 90 seconds to respond and read each other's claims in the Nearpod. Make sure you're going through and reading each other's responses and hearting them if you agree. Remember, we should all be involving ourselves with the Nearpod. If we're not involving ourselves in the Nearpod, that could result in a 0 for cold call. Great, much better. Okay, go ahead and take 30 seconds to read through each other's responses and be prepared to share out. 30 seconds to read each other's responses and figure out which ones you agree with or disagree with. Great. Now, I know that this is anonymous, but what I would like you to do is when I call your name, please tell me which post made you think about your opinion differently. So again, when I call on you, which post from one of your classmates made you think differently, and tell us what that response is. Can I hear from Erica, then Janaya, finishing up with Nyasha?
So the way I saw it, I felt that I couldn't really say that federalism had failed because I don't think that there's any way that federalism has negatively affected my life. But then I saw this one post that said that both systems are failing, both the state and the government, because they're failing to protect every citizen. And I feel like that really enlightened me, because it's crazy that there's all these forms of government and yet so many people are still being oppressed.
I said that I agree because I said that the government is doing very little to change the society because violence is still getting worse, and COVID is not like being prevented. They're just giving off ways that we could not get it and that we could social distance and use masks. But one thing that made me change my mind was it said, hold on. Someone said somewhat because the government still has the most power, showing that what they're doing is making a little bit of change, but not a lot.
Awesome, thank you.
I had said I partially agree with his claim, not because federalism isn't working correctly, but because both the federal government and the state government failed to protect the citizens. And the post that made me kind of think differently was the one that said I do agree with Stott, because the federal government has not stepped in to help prevent COVID-19, and therefore the state government was left to figure out what to do by themselves, because Trump and everybody else said that like the corona thing wasn't a big deal, and so they didn't help, and then that caused the pandemic to spread, and then the states had to figure out ways they're gonna help their own population individually.
Awesome. So the reason why I did this is because I want us to be prepped as we go into our breakout rooms to listen and share out with each other's ideas. So that brings us to today's main inquiry, which is on the Nearpod slide. Can you please unmute and read today's main inquiry out for us, Madison?
Yes, no problem. Does the COVID-19 pandemic prove that the federalism is a flawed system?
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So you are going to be going into your breakout rooms, and on page 2 of today's classwork, you have a chart for this question. You are going to take 5 minutes as a small group to start filling in that chart using specific evidence from these documents. When you come back, I will be calling on one person from each group to tell us what you discussed and specifically what evidence you used in your chart, and we will be charting as a whole group. Yes, Isis.
Can we unsubmit our homework so we can see our comments?
Yes, I already have written down who did and who did not do their homework. So you may unsubmit your responses. Just be sure to submit them before you leave the class at the end of the period. Great. So what are we doing when we are going into our breakout rooms? Aaron.
Discussing what we did for homework and the effects of feudalism and the whole virus and pandemic stuff, what's going on, how it's working or how it's not working.
Beautiful. And what am I specifically looking for when you guys come back, Naziah?
Sorry, my phone was lagging. You want to make sure that we were all exchanging our opinions on the articles and then how we come up with a different main inquiry of them.
Beautiful. And finally, just make sure that you have that specific evidence in your chart, similar to what we did last year. So you guys are pre-assigned to your breakout rooms. I am opening them now. Remember, do not come back until, let Zoom bring you back. Great. Everybody in here did not do the homework. So while everybody is in the breakout room, I want you guys to pull up the homework and get started on it. So that way you can try to submit it by the end of the class so you can at least get a partial credit for it. Do I have any questions from this group about the homework before I start popping into other rooms? Great, looks like we are, wait, sorry, I just saw one question. Awesome, thank you, Adarius, for letting me know. So go ahead and get started on the homework. I will pop back in a couple minutes to see if you guys have any questions. Make sure you use this time effectively so that way you can get still get partial credit on your response.
That the federal response has been alarmingly slow to develop, fostering confusion about the nature of the virus. Furthermore, that they go to the section where it says too little too late. It says today we find ourselves in an opposite situation. The federal government has done too little, as they're comparing the federal government to the past and saying that during the past they were doing too much, but now that we're in state emergency or, nation.
Okay, so that's mine. Jessica, y'all agree, right?
You could say, yeah, for the yes side for document 1, again, you could say the tumbling stock market and
Yeah, I see you.
precedented 10 million unemployment claims last month also have created further pressure by
While I gave the federal government only over big issues, and I feel like that's not an equal share of power, leaving the states to do everything. So that's why I said it was a flawed system. I'm gonna look for some evidence so I could show you.
Great. Sounds like you guys are having a good discussion. Just make sure everybody shares so that way in case you get cold called, you're prepared to share out.
To play devil's advocate and document, this is document 2 or whatever, it says that the states have control over matters of day-to-day life, and I think that's why they basically, the government basically said the states can deal with corona however they want, but it also says that the president has the power to
Just checking in. Let me know if you guys have any questions. The breakout rooms are going to be closing in about 90 seconds.
When we're done, you told us to do classwork, right? What things, sticking and stuff?
Yes, because you need to submit the exit ticket today. So what is the exit ticket today? Yeah, so you just need to be able to complete the exit ticket today. So that's why there's no extra documents in today's class. It's just charting and discussing the homework. So you don't necessarily need to do the classwork, but you do need to do the exit ticket, if that makes sense. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds to review your notes in case you are cold called. Awesome. So as you can see, I have my iPad shared so that way I can chart what we discuss. And so make sure you are paying attention to the chart as well, so that way you can fill in any gaps that you guys might have. So before we get started, I want to take a quick poll. So using the raise hand feature on Zoom, Raise your hand if you think that COVID-19 proves that federalism is flawed. So again, raise your hand if you think COVID-19 proves that it is flawed. Great, I'm seeing a pretty large majority, though there are some people that aren't quite so sure. So that's good that we have a variety of opinions. Go ahead and lower those hands. Thank you. So first, I want to hear from Kezia's room. Kezia, what did you guys discuss? Either for yes, it does, or no, it does not.
Can I say both?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for yes, we said that the federal government don't help the states and they give directions to what the states should do, and know that the government are trying to remain balanced, so they're letting the states control themselves, and the government is allowing states to deal with the pandemic within the states.
Mm-hmm. Great, and can we build on Kezia's ideas, Aaron's group?
We said it's flawed because the feudalism is seen as like a last resort for national problems. They try to input their own personal opinions on what they think should do, like close the business down or like social distance, which is not really helping that much because people have work and stuff like that. So instead of like trying to like help more of the decrease the problem, they're just letting it like I don't know, go out on its own with like social distancing and stuff like that. It's not really helping the situation, dial it down.
Great. Madison, I saw that you did not raise your hand earlier, and that you do not think that COVID-19 has proven that this is a flawed system. Can you build on that?
Well, originally I had picked that it is a flawed, and I mean you hear what I talk about, but after like a discussion with Erica in the group, Erica was basically saying that how like that it doesn't make sense that the federal government and the states are both going to have the same job to help the public health, that it only makes sense that the federal government is the one like doing like doing the big issues, and the states are the one that are like putting it into action. So after Erica has said that, it kind of makes sense. Why would they be doing the same thing? And also the states have been like for a long time claiming that they don't have enough power, that they have no responsibilities, and now they're giving responsibilities, so they shouldn't be complaining that it's too much. They want the power, so now deal with it.
Great. Isis, did you want to build on that?
I picked the other side, but I had stuff to go on the no side as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can I give a document or?
Yes, please.
For what does it say? Document 3. It says, hold on. It says this means that it is still up to individual states to craft policies that protect the health and welfare of their citizens during this time of crisis. Then it says the operations of the federal government will be most extensive and important in times of war and danger. Those of the state governments in times of peace and security. So I guess that's basically saying how it's up to the states to keep the people safe, because the federal government is more in charge of things that can cause war or danger, and the states are more, I guess the pandemic is affecting us as citizens and the states, so it's up to the states to fix the issue, not the federal government.
And Erica.
I agree with what's said. I feel like it makes sense that the federal government makes rules for the citizens overall and handles big problems, and the states handle problems within the state. And I feel like the federal government gave a lot of funding towards making medical supplies for it and put out a lot of regulations. And I feel like they did what they could do. I think the only flaw in this situation is that it didn't happen fast enough, is that we didn't recognize how big the threat was early on. I feel like if we would have implemented all these regulations sooner, there would have been a lot less deaths. But I think federalism makes a lot of sense.
Great. I'll go ahead and take any more hands that would like to contribute their own evidence. Great. I do not see. Oh, yes, Madison.
I have a question.
Mhm.
When we talking about federalism, are we talking about like what the Constitution says, or like what do it mean when it's flawed, like the Constitution is wrong, or what the states or government are doing? Because
Great question. So when we're talking about federalism, we are talking about the political policy of the separation of state and federal powers. So the state government has power and the federal government has power. And so that is what federalism is. And then when we think about it in terms of the Constitution as it applies to this specific situation, we are asking the question, does federalism as it is laid out in the Constitution, is it a flawed system now that we are experiencing a pandemic? Does that answer your question, Madison?
yeah, answer my question, because I was gonna say, like, because basically in the Constitution it says that the federal government only has like power over national issues, and the state has to deal with public health. So I was confused if we were talking about, are they putting that into practice? But now I get it.
Naisha.
From document 1 in the as I had mentioned in the too little too late or whatever section, the federal government used to do too much in the past, but now it's not doing enough in response to the pandemic. And I also think you could bring the outside evidence of like their implied powers, because in this situation it seems like the people are in danger, and apparently Congress can make laws if there's like a threat to the whole entire population, and COVID is a threat to the whole entire population. So that's why it seems like federalism is flawed, because the federal government isn't using this power that they always claim, especially in that situation with like the school guns and stuff like that. Why can't they do more to help to like decrease the people that's getting infected with this disease?
Janaya, I saw your hand go up. Was that an accident or did you have more evidence?
I was just gonna put evidence on the yes side.
I will absolutely take it.
I was just gonna say in document 1, it described how COVID crossed borders and threatened the economy. That's it.
Beautiful. So if COVID is threatening the economy, what's that thing in the Constitution we talk about where the federal government has a role with the economy, Emmanuel?
I was reaching my hand for something else, but I don't know. Actually, no, I don't know.
Erica?
I also have evidence, but is it the Commerce Clause?
That's right. Gee, I wonder why I'm hounding you guys about the Commerce Clause. It's almost like it's really important. Great. Erica, I'm going to come back to you. I just want to go back to Emmanuel real quick to hear what evidence he had. Emmanuel.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that I was agreeing with what Naisha said. Like, it's just so odd that, like, there's been so many issues where the federal government ended up gaining more power, and, like, in this time of crisis, they're not using the power that they've gained to, like, really do anything. Going back to what she said about the implied powers, I'm pretty sure that making laws that are necessary and proper to like keep people safe would be really helpful right now. But yeah, also I was thinking about how in each document they talk about how federalism, like the meaning of federalism has kind of evolved and changed. So like I was just wondering about how when you said that, are we talking about like if it's flawed the way it's laid out in the Constitution? If it's evolved, then is it even the same anymore? Like, I mean, I'm sure that there's like some things that are still the same, but like I know other things are probably not the same, or maybe things have been added to where it's not necessarily the same as it used to be.
Mm-hmm. So one of the terms that we use when we talk about the Constitution is we call it a living document. And that is because, as we know, amendments can be added and the Constitution can be revised. Things cannot be taken away from the Constitution, but you can add amendments to revise it in that way. So, for example, as you know from what we're doing with the river, the 26th Amendment was added to the Constitution because they realized that they should be allowing 18-year-olds to vote. So what you are suggesting is, should there be things about federalism? Should federalism be amended in the Constitution to be more relevant for today's situation? Erica.
For the no side, it says in document 2, President Trump and his advisors are setting abroad national policies, particularly with respect to international travel, the approval of treatments, and the transportation of needed medical supplies and equipment from one end of the country to another. Meanwhile, governors and local leaders are tailoring life to fit the circumstances of each community. And I also wanted to add that I think that on paper, federalism is really effective, but it's only like distorted when it's played out because humanity is what's corrupt, not necessarily the system.
Great. So I am going to create a scenario based off of something that I am also familiar with. So when you guys think of California, just put this in the chat. When you think of California, do you typically think that it is a liberal state or a conservative state? Just when you think about California, what do you assume it is, liberal or conservative? Great. So yes, the general perception, the general assumption about California is that it's a liberal state, which means that we tend to believe that they are more focused on like equality amongst gender, sexual orientation, racial equality, all of those things. And the way that that is translated is more of a, for lack of a better term, serious approach to the pandemic. That is how it is assumed that California is governing itself. However, there are large regions of California that are very conservative and have been very influenced by Trump not taking the pandemic seriously. So for example, in my hometown, there was a local gym that refused to shut down and refused to require masks because they believed that the president was the ultimate power in terms of the pandemic, even though the state of California was mandating that they wear masks or shut down. What does this scenario tell you about federalism in a pandemic? Take 30 seconds to stop and jot. So again, what happens when you have a liberal state who is putting in all of these policies of masks and closing down to prevent spread? That is the state, but then on a more local level, they are listening to the president saying that they should not take it seriously. What does this tell us about federalism? Do one more minute of stop and jot. Either in your notes or Zoom chat is fine, whatever's more comfortable. Great, I'll now take hands. What does that real life scenario tell us about the pandemic and federalism? Nyasha, and then Erica.
I think it strengthens the idea that federalism is flawed because even though like states have control over their own population, people still focus mostly on the federal government because they see it as superior, and it is like superior because of like the superiority clause and everything. But it shows how the lack of influence that the state government truly has on its people, because you see it every day, people refusing to wear a mask in the store even though it's like a store policy or whatever. So I think federalism needs to actually be written down to like list out like the powers of the states and their like authority over the people, especially in response to a pandemic this serious or whatever.
I agree with Naisha that federalism needs to be defined more. I also think that because we're in a pandemic, people were confused about where to get their information from. So in situations like this, it's important that both forms of government are on the same page and are working together towards the same thing. And like, I feel like parties and stuff makes that hard because some people think that because you're part of this party, I don't want to listen to you, I want to do something from this side. And I really feel like the government should be on the same track.
Beautiful. I want to end with that, revoicing that idea that Erica just said, that something that is an essential part of federalism is that the state and the federal government have to be able to work together. And this is a situation where, I mean, you've seen the relationship that Governor Cuomo and President Trump have. It's not exactly what we would call good. It's not the word I would use, but federalism requires not even good, it doesn't even have to be good, but it requires a relationship and agreements amongst the state and federal government. So before we get started on the exit ticket, I just want to say this was an amazing discourse, you guys. Like, this is like, thank you for just being all in and being effective with your ideas and sharing them out and raising your hand and volunteering. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was not just a great discourse. This was a day where I'm like, this is why I love my job. So just wanted to say that to you guys. Awesome job. We're going to transition to the exit ticket. I'm going to continue sharing my screen. You don't need these notes to be able to complete the exit ticket, but I'll leave these notes up there just in case. And I will be monitoring the exit ticket. It should take a little longer than normal, so it should take about 7 to 8 minutes. So go ahead and transition to the exit ticket, and I will let you know when I have your response, and you will be free to go. As a reminder to answer part A of the exit ticket, make sure you don't just explain the federal, make sure you don't just say the federal concept, but you define what that federal concept is. And again, if you have any questions, please chat me. We still have 5 minutes of class to get this done. And this will be graded on accuracy, so you want to make sure you're doing it right. I'm seeing some confusion on part A. Everybody please privately chat me the concept that you are listing for part A. I just want to make sure everybody's doing this correct. You don't have to define it, just tell me which political concept. Great, Isis, you're good. Great, Naisha, Erica, Nazaya, Janiqua, you guys are all good. Again, just chat what the concept is that you're describing, and I'll let you know if you're correct. And then if you're not, I can follow up with you. Manuel, you're good. Madison, you're good. Janaya, you're good. Aaron, now you're good. Okay, I heard from most people, but again, if you have not chatted me your answer to part A, please do so I can let you know if you're in the right direction or not. For your answers to part A, there are a couple things in green in your chart. No, not part A, part B. If you're not sure what to put for Part B, there are a couple things in green that might be useful. This was an issue that I saw in yesterday's exit tickets. Make sure that you're thinking of an actual political strategy that they could use. Yes, Dwayne, you are correct.